All right, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call this workshop to order. Thank you for being here today. It is 2:31 p.m. on November 27th, 2023, and this is the scheduled time for the workshop to solicit comments regarding proposed changes to Chapter 583 of the Nevada Administrative Code. This workshop is being held in person at the 3C Complex at 325 Sheckler Road in Fallon, Nevada, zip code 89406. As well as virtually via Zoom using either computer or telephone to ensure all wishing to participate may do so. This workshop has been properly noticed and is being recorded as required by Nevada open meeting law. We are recording today's meeting for those wishing to view at a later date. My name is Shada Sanjita. I am the project manager for the Nevada Meat and Poultry Inspection Program. And the following NDA staff members are also in attendance. Please state your name and title.
I'm Melissa Townsell. I am the program educator for the Nevada Meat and Poultry Inspection Program.
Now I will go ahead and read off of the names on the sign-in sheet. If you haven't placed your name on the sign-in sheet, please do so before you leave so that I may keep an accurate record of who attended this meeting. Is this Richard Cartney? Then we have Lance Johnson. Then we have Shelby and Troy, is it Sean? Seen. We have Doug Busselman. We have Emma Fullerton. We have Justin Johnson. We have Jamie Lee. And we have Leanna Carey. All right. And then I will go over those who are participating via Zoom. We will say your name and record your attendance for you. So via Zoom, we have Lisa Burnett. Lisa, could you please unmute and let me know if there's anyone else attending with you?
There's no one else in the room.
Thank you. Julia Miller Ketchum, could you please unmute and let me know if there's anyone else attending with you? Okay. Shelly Pope, could you please unmute and let me know if there's anyone else attending with you?
Hey, Shade, it's just me.
Thank you. JJ Goakachia, could you please unmute and let me know if there's anyone attending with you?
Just me.
Thank you. Chad Sestanovich, could you please unmute and let me know if there's anyone attending with you?
It's just me.
Thank you. Dave, could you please unmute and let me know if there's anyone else attending with you? Dave, I don't seem to hear you. Could you please just drop it in the chat if there's anyone else attending with you? Daryl Purcell, could you please unmute and let me know if anyone is attending with you? Daryl, I'm seeming not to hear you. Could you please drop your name in the chat and let me know if anyone is attending with you? So I will, for the folks attending by Zoom, I will go over a few housekeeping items. We will be using some of the features of Zoom for those who have joined us through the online platform. At the bottom of your screen, you will see participants in chat. Click on chat to open the chat box. Next, locate the participants icon and click to open. Find your name on the participant list and hover over your name. A raised hand icon will appear, and this is what you will click to participate if you wish to speak during public comment or questions. Click it again to lower your hand after speaking or to withdraw the request. If you don't find the hand by hovering in your name, use the three dots at the bottom of the screen to open a menu where you'll have the option of lowering your hand. For those who are participating by phone, please press *9 to raise or lower your hand if you have a question or comment. When called upon, please press *6 to unmute or mute yourself. We have gone ahead and muted everyone to reduce background noise. If you wish to give public comment, please use the hand raising feature and we'll call on you to ensure your mic is unmuted. and those on the phone can unmute themselves when called upon by pressing *6. If you have any technical issues during the meeting, please try the following. Turn the video off to see if your connection improves. Leave the video meeting and either try to rejoin or call in using the phone number and login information from the agenda. If you are having problems getting unmuted or into the comment queue, use the chat function to make your comment and it will be recorded for the record. In addition to public comments during this workshop, interested parties are welcome to submit written public comment and email to ssanjideh@agri.nv.gov. If you're attending in person, please use the sign-in sheet. If you're virtually attending, we'll be using the participant list for the record. If we're unsure of your name, we may send you a message so that we have the correct information in the meeting minutes. If you're joining via phone, please send an email to ssanjideh@agri.nv.gov indicating you participated in today's workshop or remain on the line after we close so we can capture your information for the meeting record. So now I'll go ahead and I'll provide an overview of the rulemaking process so that you can have background on the state of Nevada's current regulations and where we're making the proposed changes. During 2022, the agency began the development of a meat and poultry inspection program funded and administered primarily by the NDA. The NDA staff were involved in reviewing the NAC, and as the first step, the NDA reviewed the existing Nevada Administrative Code language, updated sections due to federal guidelines, reviewed other state programs, and calculated program costs. The draft that we will be reviewing today is the most updated version of the proposed changes. These changes were submitted to the Legislative Counsel Bureau, or LCB, for review and comment on, and then were sent to NDA with LCB's response. Next, the department distributed a small business impact survey for industry input. The information was compiled and a statement was included with this workshop notice. This workshop is being held to review the proposed changes and receive public comment to help shape the final proposed language. Additional comments may be submitted following the workshops up until December 29th, 2023. Following the workshop process, and once the Legislative Counsel Bureau has provided input and approval to move forward, a hearing and intent to adopt proposed regulations will be scheduled and noticed. Public comment may also be made before, during, and after that hearing. The draft coming out of the hearing process is then adopted by the department and submitted for review and approval by the Legislative Commission. And after approval by the Legislative Commission or subcommittee to review regulations, the Legislative Counsel Bureau will file the regulation with the Secretary of State. This is the point the adopted regulation would become effective. Taking a look at our meeting, we begin by opening the meeting and we have a call to order. We went over the virtual attendee reminders and roll call. Next, we'll move into our first round of public comment. And once the public comment period is ended, we will do an overview of the proposed changes to NAC Chapter 583. We will have a review and discussion on the proposed regulations for information only. We will have a second session of public comment after this review, and then the meeting will adjourn, and we will hold a final roll call. So from our agenda, you'll see we'll start with public comment. We ask that you limit to 3 minutes to ensure everyone can be heard. Following open comment, we will review the proposed changes to NAC 583, followed by time for question and clarification. Please be sure to save your questions for the question period. And at this moment, we will open the first period for public comment for anyone who wishes to provide comments for the record.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Leanna Carey, Progressive Rancher Magazine. I'm going to make a statement and I'm going to ask a question. First of all, the complicated information that is provided for custom exempt, I feel is over and above what we need for custom and exempt. I would like to know, I would like to know where the information came from, very, very definitive information, where all of this information was extrapolated to form your policy at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanna. Is there anyone else in attendance that would like to provide public comment? Is there anyone on the Zoom that would like to provide public comment before we move on to the review of the proposed changes? All right, I'm not seeing any hands shown, so I will go ahead and I will move on to the review of the regulations. Just a reminder, we will have a second period for public comment, just in case you were not able at the moment. Can everyone here see that just fine?
Can you enlarge it?
Sure thing.
One more time.
That might be a little too
Yeah.
much.
Thank you. Yeah, my reading glasses is giving me a headache. It's like, thank you so much.
So the proposed regulations, they begin with the Legislative Council's digest, where they break down the sections on how they interpreted the sections. I will go ahead and go into the actual sections and describe the sections themselves. So starting with section 1 through section 11 provides new definitions or clarified definitions for words that may be used in the regulation. There are definitions that already exist in Nevada Revised Statute 583 that would still apply to this chapter, and the definitions that are already listed in the Nevada Administrative Code, Chapter 583, would also still apply. So section 1 through section 11 provides new definitions for words that may be used.
We're going to ask questions now.
Once I get into the questions period, no worries. So moving to section 12. Section 12 of this regulation requires a person who wishes to operate an official establishment to submit an application for a permit to the department. It outlines the fees to obtain and review a permit, and it requires the applicant to submit certain plans for the construction of the official establishment covered by the permit under certain conditions. So this section also establishes certain provisions governing such permit. Moving to section 13. Section 13 of this regulation requires a person who wishes to operate a custom processing establishment or mobile processing unit to submit an application for license to the department. It establishes fees to obtain or renew a license and requires the applicant to submit certain plans for the construction of the custom processing establishment or mobile processing unit covered by the license under certain circumstances. It also establishes a fee for the review of such plans by the department and establishes certain provisions governing such license. Going to section 14. Section 14 of this regulation requires a holder of a permit or license to operate an official establishment, custom processing establishment, or mobile processing unit who intends to remodel, renovate, or alter an official establishment, custom processing establishment, or mobile unit as applicable to, before performing any such work, submit to the department a plan detailing the proposed changes and a fee for the review by the department of these changes. Section 15 of this regulation authorizes with certain exceptions the department to grant inspection services to each person issued a permit or license to operate an official establishment, a custom processing establishment or mobile processing unit if the permittee or license satisfies certain requirements, and requires the department to notify a permittee or licensee if the department grants inspection to such person. What screen is it showing? Oh, it's still showing the slide.
Yeah.
Moving on to sections 16 and 17. Sections 16 and 17 of this regulation establish certain requirements for the construction, design, and use of a mobile processing unit. Now, sections 18 through 21 of this regulation establish various requirements relating to the sanitation procedures used in the handling of certain food products in a mobile processing unit. So again, section 18 through 21 establish various requirements relating to the sanitation procedures used and the handling of certain food products in a mobile processing unit. All right, section 22 of this regulation requires a custom processing establishment or mobile processing unit to comply with certain provisions of law. Section 23 of this regulation requires a person who holds a license to operate a custom processing establishment to tag each animal or carcass of such animal as not for sale, and to keep products for custom processing separate from products under inspection. Section 24 of this regulation requires an inspector to mark certain equipment, utensils, rooms, or compartments that are not sanitary or could adulterate a product with a Nevada rejected tag. Section 25 of this regulation authorizes the department to detain or embargo any meat or poultry in a custom processing establishment or mobile processing unit if the meat or poultry does not have proper identification or if the meat or poultry does not comply with certain requirements. Section 26 of this regulation requires each person issued a permit or license to operate an official establishment, custom processing establishment, or a mobile processing unit to comply with certain federal laws that regard to humane methods of slaughter. Section 27 of this regulation requires each person issued a license to operate a custom processing establishment or mobile processing unit to keep records in accordance with certain federal laws and authorizes the department at reasonable times to access such records. Section 28 of this regulation authorizes the department to issue a written warning to a person who holds a license to operate a custom processing establishment or mobile processing unit who is suspected of committing certain repeated violations. It provides certain requirements for such a warning and authorizes the department to perform an inspection to determine if the violation was corrected and charge a fee for such inspection. Section 29 of this regulation authorizes the department to suspend a license to operate a custom processing establishment or mobile processing unit under certain circumstances. It authorizes a person whose license was suspended to request a hearing before the department and authorizes the licensee to apply to the department for reinstatement of the license. Section 29 also authorizes the department to charge a fee for the reinstatement of a license. Section 30 of this regulation provides some updates to what is already in the Nevada Administrative Code. It amends NAC 583, Section 010. Section 31 of this regulation provides language updates to what is already in NAC 583, Section 020. Section 32 of this regulation provides some language updates on stamp usage. Section 33 of this regulation adds poultry products to the language for how products must be cleaned and prepared for processing and stored in a plant. NAC Section 34 amends certain language in NAC 583, Section 050. It provides some clarification for the term adulterated, and it changes state health officer to the state quarantine officer. It takes out a reference to the Board of Health and now references the department, meaning the Department of Agriculture. Section 35 of this regulation is an amendment to include the United States Department of Agriculture to provide clarification between the United States Department of Agriculture and the Nevada Department of Agriculture. Section 36 amends NAC 583, Section 231, again to add of the United States. Section 37 of this regulation amends NAC 583, Section 350. This adds poultry in to include the mandatory inspection for all of the listed species for distribution in Nevada, and provides for Nevada's cooperation with the United States Department of Agriculture. Section 38 of this regulation amends NAC 583, Section 370 to remove the reference to the Board of Health and to add in the department. Section 39 of this regulation amends NAC 583, Section 380 to include poultry and humane handling and sanitary conditions of official establishments, custom processing establishments, and mobile processing units. Yes.
Was wildlife included in that? You're going so fast, and I didn't get my printout done. I do apologize.
No worries. We can go back to the section in the Q&A.
Thank you.
Section 40 of this regulation is amending NAC 583, Section 390 to provide some language clarification. Section 41 of this regulation amends NAC 583-400 to add the language, any official establishment shall ensure an ante-mortem examination is made. It provides some clarification between the type of establishment and the United States Department of Agriculture. It amends a section on animals that are suspected of being affected with a disease or that show any symptoms of disease to be kept separate from other livestock and poultry and cannot be slaughtered until the animal has been found fit for slaughter by a veterinary inspection. This animal, if it is showing symptoms, has to be slaughtered separately from other livestock and poultry after the animal has been found fit. Section 42 of this regulation amends NAC 583-410 to add some language on species of animal, what type of stamping would be used. It would be Nevada inspected and passed. It adds some language clarification for the type of establishment. And it provides a section on what must be done for meat or poultry that is not found fit for human consumption. Section 43 of this regulation amends NAC 583-420 to add in poultry. Section 44 of this regulation amends NAC 583, section 430. This adds in language on poultry and clarification on which type of establishment. It adds language for custom processing establishments and mobile processing units that are subject to the provisions of NAC 583 section 211 to 583 section 530 to be kept in a clean and sanitary condition during all periods of operation. It adds a section stating that the department may prescribe additional sanitary standards and require sanitary inspections of any custom processing establishment or mobile processing unit. And it adds a section in which the officer of the department may withdraw inspection services from any custom processing or mobile processing unit that the officer or department determines does not comply with the appropriate sanitary standards. Section 45 of this regulation amends NAC 583-440. It provides some language updates for poultry and provides the clarification on the type of establishment. It also adds that custom processing products must be labeled not for sale, and shipping containers carrying poultry products exempt from this chapter must be marked with the name and address of the owner and must include the statement exempt PL 90492. Section 46 of this regulation amends NAC 583 section 450. This adds some poultry language in, provides clarification on the type of establishment in which inspection is maintained. It provides a section in which what products may be entered or inspected at an official establishment. Section 47 amends NAC 583, Section 460. It adds a section in which no person may offer for sale or transportation any products covered by this chapter and the provisions of NAC 583, Section 211 to 583, Section 500, unless the products and containers are appropriately labeled. Section 48 of this regulation amends NAC 583, Section 470, to provide which types of processing methods or establishments Section 49 of this regulation amends NAC 583, Section 480 to remove reference to the Board of Health and instead reference the department or the officer. It provides reference to NRS 583, Section 543. Section 50 of this regulation amends NAC 583, Section 490 to include poultry. It also adds a reference to the Poultry Products Inspection Act. Section 51 of this regulation amends NAC 583, Section 510. It removes certain language and provides an update on cooperative efforts between the officer and the Secretary of Agriculture of the United States Department of Agriculture and assistance in planning and developing the state's program, technical and laboratory assistance and training. It provides an update to clarify the United States Department of Agriculture and which section of the Federal Meat Inspection Act apply in this section. Section 52 of this regulation amends NAC 583, Section 520. It provides some language updates for a cooperative agreement between the department and the Agricultural Marketing Services of the United States Department of Agriculture. It removes reference to the Health Division of the Department of Health and Human Services. Additionally, it also removes reference to the Board of Health and changes it with the department. And it also provides for which sections of the regulations governing meat inspection of the Department of Agriculture have been adopted by reference. It includes which sections of the Federal Meat Inspection Act that were adopted by reference. It provides for which sections of the Poultry Products Inspection Act that were adopted by reference. It includes which sections of the Humane Methods of Slaughter Act are adopted by reference. It provides some language clarification in reference to the usage of "we," the Food Safety and Inspection Service, and the United States Department of Agriculture and the department as used in the federal regulations to be amended to refer to the state equivalent or counterpart. It also provides how and where the provisions of 9 Code of Federal Regulations, parts 300 to 500 are available for access and viewing. Section 4 also provides another location in which someone could access the sections. It adds a section in which any of the federal regulations that are adopted by reference are updated. The officer will review the revision to determine if it is suitable for the state. Section 53 of this regulation amends NAC 583, Section 530. It adds poultry language. This section provides for clarification on personal use and that the provisions requiring the inspection of animals that are being slaughtered by any person of the animal the person raised, or the preparation and transportation for exclusive use by the person or members of their family. It also provides a section for adoption of exemptions provided in Section 623 of the Federal Meat Inspection Act and Section 464 of the Poultry Products Inspection Act. They are adopted by reference and apply to these provisions of NAC 583, Section 211 to NAC 583, Section 530, and Sections 1 to 29 of this regulation. Section 54 is that NAC 583 Section 300 is repealed. The text of the repealed section is the definition of officer, in which officer means the state health officer, and this has been removed from the language. And that is the end of the document, so I will go back to the slideshow. So now we will go ahead and move over to our review and discussion period. We are now available to take any questions regarding the proposed changes. And a quick reminder for those who are online, please use the raised hand function to be called upon, and be sure to state your name and any affiliation for the record. And please limit your comment to 3 minutes or less. As a reminder for anyone who has joined on the phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. And once you've been called upon, you can press *6 to unmute yourself.
6. I can't do that, you dingling. Oh.
You're on the air.
Okay, who is speaking? This is Alyssa Townsell for the record.
They're not gonna tell you. What's it mean?
Well, I wasn't supposed to call in.
Seeing no questions at this point, we're going to turn over to live participants. Yes.
I have several questions.
Okay.
The first one is, what is the annual cost to NDA for each plant or each facility?
That is highly dependent on the location of the facility,
Right here in Fallon.
how often the facility would need to be inspected, and
What besides that?
meaning besides,
Yeah, I mean,
What decides that?
what decides that?
How often it needs to be inspected?
well, are you going to be going under state inspection or custom inspection?
Well,
That would kind of
we've got,
depend what the cost would be, because if you're going under state inspection and say you want inspection every single day of the week, the department would have to have an inspector that is able to come out to the department, to your facility every day of the week to perform said inspection for state products. So it is highly dependent on the location of the facility and proximity to a Department of Agriculture location. It is dependent on how often and at which volume the facility wants to operate at. And it is dependent
so it sounds
on,
expensive.
I would have to talk to our fiscal department to get the
Could you-
actual
could you
numbers.
find out for me?
Absolutely.
And then on I'm sorry, on number 1 up there, it says that the animals inspected, so there's gonna be somebody come out every day when we butcher.
If you apply for state inspection and you get approved for state inspection, you would let the department know, I will be slaughtering under state inspection Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for example. That Monday, Wednesday, Friday, an inspector from the department would come out to your facility and perform inspection duties as USDA would perform inspection duties.
How much education do these people have that are coming out?
Uh,
Like right now, they have to hold something up that we can't butcher. The veterinarian has to do that because they're there every day.
well,
So are we gonna have to wait a week to get that person out there so we can butcher our stock?
if you have animals that are presenting signs of disease, they
Well,
have to
we
be
kill
cleared by
crippled
a
stuff. We kill
veterinarian.
crippled stuff all the time, but they just walk by and look at them and we kill
Well,
them. So where do you guys fall in that?
Well, the regulations, so the state has to be at least equal to the way that USDA performs inspections. So
Okay.
if USDA requires that a veterinarian comes out and assesses an animal that is showing ambulatory issues, disease, stuff that they could not just be regularly slaughtered for, that they
Right.
need to be inspected, the state would also need to have a veterinarian inspector come out and perform the same
But how,
veterinary
I guess
inspection.
what I'm getting at is, how have they done this before?
The state has not had a state inspection program.
So everybody's coming out, if they see something that's crippled, they're gonna have the vet come out and check it.
A vet would
That's-
have to come out and check it, but the inspectors that are coming from the state, they will be getting USDA training. They will go shadow in USDA facilities
Okay.
and they will do the training as USDA requires.
Okay, somebody else.
I got a couple questions too. One would just be something to bounce off that. What's the benefit of having a state inspection over a custom exempt inspection then? What are the benefits I get from having a new label built for products like that? What can I do with it?
Well, so in custom, you're performing a service for the owner of an animal. All of those products that
Yeah.
come from said animal go right back to that owner.
Mhm.
And it cannot be offered for sale.
Says
Those
not for
products
sale.
have to be labeled not for sale.
Yep.
Now, if you are under a state inspection, as you would USDA inspection, and you have the continuous animal by animal inspection and the carcass inspection, your product would be stamped with a Nevada inspected and passed stamped.
Okay.
Then that product would be able to be sold within the boundaries of Nevada.
Other than that, okay.
Yes, so say
Awesome.
someone comes to you with a cow
Mhm.
and you process it for them and you have an inspector from the state present. You could stamp that product, inspected and passed, and then because it is a stamped product, that the owner of the animal could then go ahead and sell that product. If you had a retail front, you could sell product. It
Okay.
just provides a clarification for inspection and what can be sold and what can't be sold.
Okay, is there any regulations on quantity?
No.
We're talking about, so nothing, so I mean, down to one steak up to an entire beef.
As long as it was in carcass that was inspected animal by animal
Okay,
and it is stamped, it can be sold.
okay, so just the carcass then, you wouldn't be watching processing?
The
at that point?
processing at the rate that USDA inspects, of course, it's not packet by packet by
No, of
packet.
course.
It
I
would
mean,
be-
if I needed state inspection that day, it would require, I'm sure, scheduling and then obviously being able to come in and check. Now, that paperwork, I believe at the very top of it said we had to have a plan.
Yes, so
Okay.
for the initial application, say you've never been licensed before, you've never had a plan review ever done, this is your first time
Right.
even applying for anything.
Of course.
You would have to have the plan review. Now, the benefit of the plan review is that someone from the department will sit down with you and go step by step by step over it. And this is
Okay.
especially beneficial
Yeah.
for someone who wants to open a facility.
Mhm.
That way, the department can review your plan and tell you, yes, your facility is okay, you can sanitize it properly, I see nothing wrong with this.
Mhm.
If you're doing an official establishment for commercial sale, you would need a HACCP plan. Someone from the department would sit with you and review your HACCP plan, make sure everything checks out, and basically give you the green flag. And like I was saying, that is especially beneficial for someone who wants to construct a facility,
Of course.
so that they don't go ahead and construct a facility, spend all this money constructing it, then they submit a plan review after the facility is already fully constructed,
Of course.
and the department goes, you have to change this.
Yeah. No, that makes
And-
sense.
My whole intention is that the department is there for you every step of the way. If you have
Okay.
questions, you can always reach out and you should expect to hear back really
So then,
soon.
so then what we're saying is if we have state inspection, we don't have, those of my customers that are within the state can still maintain inspected quality product, but they don't have to fall under USDA, they now fall under state inspection.
And then if that's how your facility wants to operate, yes, you still have the option of USDA inspection.
Okay,
Now-
well, if that's the question, then we are going to then need veterinaries, but then the other question is, I have a lot of testing that goes through, whether it's trim or ground, E. coli sponge tests and stuff like that I have to do. Where does state inspection, are you going to be following those same parameters?
Yes, the
Okay,
department has to perform all testing as USDA would perform, because a state inspection program has to be at least equal to the federal provisions.
okay,
So if USDA has a requirement stating that you need to swab this many carcasses during this many months and submit for
13
residue
weeks.
testing,
Mhm.
then the state program has to follow suit.
Okay, so it seems like we're gonna be spending more in state inspection than we do with our USDA inspection, because all I have to do for USDA is pay them for overtime.
You would just have to apply for the permit, the
Okay,
initial permit, and then every year you just have to renew it.
I knew it.
So it could be
Is our permit that we've got now good?
is it a custom permit?
Mhm. Yeah, it would be under custom, it wouldn't be under their state inspection.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
because
so it's almost,
the state inspection program, the component of the state inspection is new. And as the regulations are developed and once they're put in place, then Nevada can sign a cooperative agreement with USDA in which USDA would allow for us to then employ our own inspectors and inspect
right.
meat
So
products,
obviously,
poultry
we're helping
products for
you
sale.
fund this program to be able to build it. So custom is still going to be custom.
Custom will still be
State is gonna be
custom.
state inspection, so we're just adding another layer of inspection in between USDA and custom.
Yes, and that's if you're USDA inspected and you want to keep staying USDA inspected for commercially saleable product, you can continue with USDA.
Okay.
If say you're someone who has just been a custom processor for the last several years and you want to explore a new avenue
Of course.
for revenue, you can tell your customers, I can get inspectors out here, my facility is state inspected, and your product can now be inspected to be a saleable product. That could be another source of revenue for
Yeah.
someone who operates a custom processing establishment.
Okay.
What's the cost difference? I mean, I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about.
That's what
but-
she's gonna get.
Yeah,
What's the cost difference? I mean, if we're paying USDA inspectors and then we're going to pay them, I mean, what's the
Well,
cost benefit?
Well, ours, so it's not a requirement, is basically what
Right,
I'm
but-
getting to. But what is happening is somebody who wants to further, there's still going to be custom people doing custom exempt work, but those who want to transition into a more qualified facility. Yeah.
But we can do that under USDA.
No, we can, yeah, but this is basically
Can't
designed
really.
for somebody, not, if they're not USDA inspected. Now, what they're doing is allowing people of Nevada, they don't have to go through USDA, they can go strictly through state inspection.
Right,
To
so,
be able to do it.
and I got that, but that's what I'm saying, I mean, there's a cost to it. So if the cost, and we're already established as USDA, and the cost is $1,000, and then their program is $1,500, I'm gonna have a tough time selling you that you need to have it inspected under state.
Right.
When it costs, that's what I'm trying to figure out,
Right.
what's that cost?
Well, the USDA allows you to be able to cross state lines where this is gonna keep it within.
Oh, that was another question. My understanding is, and I could be
Sorry,
wrong,
we're taking it all.
No,
is
no.
that to sell the meat to a supermarket, for instance,
Okay.
Yeah, good, go.
it has to be USDA, it can't be NDA. That's
So
a federal law.
your question is to be able to sell to a
Restaurants and
restaurant or markets, does it have to be USDA inspected or can it be state inspected? If the restaurant accepts a product that has been inspected, because this is a fully inspected product, this product has been inspected to make sure it hasn't been misbranded, to ensure that it hasn't been adulterated, to ensure that it was created in a sanitary establishment, it would have the same level of inspection. And it can move within commerce in Nevada. It just cannot leave Nevada. So say there's someone in California that's interested in the product. If it's state inspected, it cannot go to that California buyer.
Then one last question, and I can take it over. Let's say that we're NDA and we're doing USDA in the morning, we finish at 11, we start processing NDA. Who takes priority? Because USDA is going to inspect the place in the morning. You guys, let's say, come by later and you don't like what's going on. Who's going to win?
So
We're dealing with this situation right now with our jerky supplier.
Mhm.
And the state and the feds are in a pissing contest.
okay.
So
So
are we going to run into that?
So your question is asking basically who has the authority over a
Right.
facility, whether it's USDA or the Nevada Department of
Because
Agriculture.
the only reason is because we're dealing with that.
Mhm. Could you tell me a little bit more about the situation that you're
It's
facing?
strictly labeling.
Strictly labeling?
Yes. It's a jerky that they were labeling as for dogs,
Mhm.
but it's made right off the same line, so it's still human, people can eat it.
Okay,
So
so
they-
it's just a labeling
It's
concern.
just, but I'm just saying, that's how government works. I mean, you know that as well as I do. And we
Yeah,
just don't want to run into that in the slaughterhouse. I mean, our processing.
I mean, my perspective is that if it is product that is produced under USDA's purview, they're the one that's there during it. All of the product that is there during USDA and inspected during USDA stays with USDA. Now, when the state comes in and does their inspection for products and carcasses, those carcass and products would be under state
So they're
inspection. So
gonna come in between processing USDA and when we start NDA. So
Well,
we really can't just go from one to the other.
say the USDA has already inspected a product and they've passed it, the NDA is not going to come in and
No,
also
I'm
inspect
saying, but
and pass.
if we do USDA processing in the morning,
Yes,
and then we did some under NDA, that we're gonna process in the afternoon.
Okay.
Are we gonna have to tear everything down and clean everything again before we can process NDA?
Right, because there's a pre-operational, pre-operation that you got to go through that USDA inspection facility before you get started, make sure it's clean, stuff like that for the day. What I was questioning is, once I finish up those 2 beef under federal and I've got a beef under state, does state come in and then make me clean to do a pre-op on my facility again, just to be able to do that one beef?
How are your sanitation standard operating procedures written at the moment? Do you run into a situation where you're switching between USDA and custom?
Yes, and if it changes over species, then I clean.
Okay,
So.
but if it's changing between USDA inspection and custom,
And then
you're not
custom, I don't-
performing any cleaning in
Nope.
between? You know, that's something that I'm happy to look more into and provide clarification
Just
to you for.
for ease of use of your guys' program. you know,
But-
just in case we get to that point where we need to be able to understand, like, are we gonna be halted waiting for somebody to, or do we just set up days where it's like, okay, today's USDA day, tomorrow's gonna be state inspected day, you know, are we separating that way? How do we implement this opportunity into our facility?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and I will look into that because USDA does have requirements for the state to follow.
Yep.
And so I would just have to check in with them and see how they require the operating procedures
Okay.
to be done.
Because you're just going to adopt
Yes.
their, okay.
The many of USDA's Code of Federal Regulations that pertain to meat and poultry inspection were adopted by reference.
Mhm. Okay, so I mean, it's not a requirement for them to be there to do pre-operational. It is required that I do fill out a pre-operational template each time.
Mhm.
And then obviously calibrate my thermometers and stuff like that. Are you guys gonna be looking into maintaining temperatures through the processing?
Yeah, so the NDA, if they're coming in to take inspection duties, they would, check records, make sure records are being kept appropriately, that you have everything documented and labeled as you would, your SOPs,
Mhm.
you're following as you've
And would you
written.
adopt our already implemented HACCP plan?
What was that?
Would you adopt our implemented HACCP plan as of right now?
Would I adopt your implemented HACCP plan that has
Yeah.
been passed by USDA?
Yeah.
I don't see why not. I
I
mean,
don't see why not either.
I don't see why not. I mean, if USDA has taken a look at it and they've passed it and they say it works for the facility, there's no reason for the state to come in and complicate it.
Good.
We just don't want no gotchas. I mean, we're not trying to cut corners or anything, we just don't want gotchas down the road.
Absolutely.
And I think that's my question on the money part of it is, how do we sell this to customers? As this is an advantage or, because in my mind, if you came to me, Joe Blow walking on the street, it's like, well, hell, let's just do it under USDA, call it good. But if there's a cost difference, if there's something that we can pass on to the customer to help them, that's where we need your information to say, yeah, this is some sort of a benefit to us or to them.
Mhm.
Because either way, I mean, business, it's gonna get passed on to the customer, but we gotta try to make it feasible for the customer.
Absolutely.
One quick question, how does game fit into this?
I did not include anything for game.
So we
Within
just do it
state
like we've been
inspection.
doing, just under custom. Okay.
Yes.
That's good. I mean, there's no money in game, but it's kind of a service we try to do to.
Yeah, none of these regulations, so your question was about how game would be affected. Processing. None of these regulations touch on anything of game, the way that game is. It's kept the same. I'm sure you all follow this. If you have inspected product hanging, you're not gonna hang game
Of course.
next to it. That's the only thing that's,
And now would yours be, let's say we did a couple under USDA, a couple under state, do you require a separate rail?
they would need to be properly labeled.
Okay,
so
but because I know USDA, I have a specific rail that I put USDA product on only.
Mhm.
It's inspected, but I don't know, with you guys being so close in inspecting, with that same rail, let's say I did 2 under USDA, 2 under state, would I be able to put those 4 beef on the same rail? So I'm not trying to section out my cooler even more. To
Got
be
it.
able to accommodate.
So your question is on if you're doing 2 carcasses under USDA and 2 carcasses under state if they have to be split on the rail. Now, that's something that would need to be reviewed in your plan. Say you do go under state inspection or during your facility review. And just to make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dots, I would check myself
Yeah, it's
with
product- it's under product
USDA.
separation for me.
Mhm.
In my opinion, I would assume that an ample amount of space between those 2 carcasses would be enough, but that's left up to opinion, not really factual. So that's where I would wonder if we would be required to separate another rail in our cooler specifically designed for state inspected.
Absolutely. That's something that I'm definitely happy to look more into and provide you with a definitive answer.
Okay.
As of right now, I want to say just ample separation between carcass would be necessary.
And would that be the same regulations then if I wanted to put state inspected product on the same rail as custom?
I believe custom does have to be kept separate.
So it would be on a separate rail? Okay.
Yes.
Fair.
Deanna?
Is buffalo included in livestock?
Is buffalo included in livestock?
Is it inclusive?
Inclusive.
Yeah.
Okay. Has USDA defined buffalo under livestock, or is livestock defined as, let's see, cattle, goat, sheep, swine, and equine? I believe that's the current definition for livestock.
It may fall under exotics.
I believe buffalo may fall under exotic.
Is there reference in your write-up on exotic?
There's no reference to exotic within my regulations. These regulations cover poultry and they cover livestock, meaning cattle, sheep, pigs, goat, equine, although there is no slaughter of horses. There hasn't been
Yeah.
in a while.
To develop a market, you have to be able to do buffalo. So what would be the deficit of not including buffalo?
The deficit in not including buffalo?
It would be a plus, because then you would have to go back and revisit it again.
Mhm.
And any market that we can open to benefit our rancher farmer and anyone that would like to get into a meats business to promote foods of Nevada. So I don't want to throw a ringer into it, but I lived 11 years in Idaho, and Idaho ate a lot of buffalo.
Mhm.
The USDA does not inspect buffalo. It's exotic, so you have to pay to have buffalo inspected.
Yeah, I believe it's a fee for service inspection.
Keep it that way.
Doug?
Doug Busselman, Nevada Farm Bureau. To go back to the process that you're going to be using for developing these regulations,
Yes.
following the hearings that are held after the workshops are concluded, who will be making the decision for what to do with the proposed regulations?
That is something that I will be discussing further with my department as well as USDA, because they all need to be in conjunction with one another. With the adoption of the regulations, USDA does have to review them before full adoption to ensure that we do meet their at least equal to standard.
Will the Board of Agriculture have an opportunity to also weigh in on whether they approve or disapprove of the final product?
That's something that I'm happy to explore and to see if that is the intention, but I do believe it is, yes.
It is.
I believe so, yes.
The board will review.
I believe so, yes. And I'm happy to check and provide clarification for you as well.
After all of that has gone through its process, under most regulations, the finalized documents then go to the Legislative Commission. Are the Legislative Commission going to be reviewing these regulations?
Yes, the Legislative Commission will review any changes that are performed before final adoption.
Okay. A couple of questions. First of all, in section 41, it was indicated that, the person who is doing the slaughter process, that they need to go through, a anti-morum examination.
So your question is about section 41.
Right. Where it
And
says that an official establishment shall ensure that that's carried out.
yes,
Now, does any of that fall under the services provided by the Department of Agriculture?
if the facility is deemed an official establishment, meaning that it has a permit to operate as such, the NDA inspector that would come out for inspections would perform that ante-mortem inspection.
Okay. And are there fees associated with that particular?
There are no fees associated with the actual act of inspecting. The only fees are for permitting or licensing and your initial plan review.
So then, does that mean that the NDA is providing those services of inspection for free?
Yes, the NDA is providing the service of inspection. The only cost to the producer is the licensing or permitting fee and their initial plan review.
Now,
So
was
you
there
won't have
something-
to pay for an inspector to come out every day.
What's that?
You would not have to pay for an
For a
inspector to
Department
come
of
out
Ag
every day.
inspector.
But wasn't there something about fines with reoccurring issues in a facility?
Yeah, so say your question is on reoccurring issues within a facility and the fines. So say you have an establishment that is consistently adulterating product or consistently not sanitary. And this is something that has been notated. You have been warned by the department. They have noticed saying, you know, you have violated this, and your facility continues to keep doing it. The department can then suspend your license or permit based on what type of operation you're doing. And in order to reinstate your suspended license or permit, you would need to have that inspection done for reinstatement. Now, that is to safeguard Nevada consumers. A facility should not be consistently violating sanitary standards. It should not be consistently adulterating product, because I'm sure as a producer, you know your product is going out to other people, it's going to families, and it can potentially make people extremely sick. So if you're not continuously violating sanitary standards, or you're not continuously adulterating product, that's not a fee that you should worry.
Right. No, I totally get that. But the other question that I have is, don't we go through NDA for, not for human consumption products?
Meaning,
Isn't that a permit that we get from you guys to be able to, let's say if we want to sell dog bones?
mhm.
Or, you know,
Dog food.
or dog food, whatever the case may be, is that
Lion
going to
food.
follow under NDA as of right now? So if that's the case, is that potentially need to be now inspected by you guys?
So your question is on the inspection and
It would
permitting of
be,
non-human
Not for
consumption
human
items?
consumption, yeah.
You know, that's not something that I would quite have the answer to at
Okay.
this moment, but I will take note on it and I will
Yeah.
take a look into it and see what the proper avenue is for that kind of production and let you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I appreciate it.
Doug?
Again, Doug Busselman from Nevada Farm Bureau. In your earlier discussion, you indicated that the Department of Agriculture will be doing inspections equivalent to what USDA carries out in their inspection process. Is there a section in the regulations that refers specifically to the regulations that you would be carrying out in a official establishment?
So your question is on if there's anything in the regulations that indicate what kind of inspection would be performed in an official establishment,
In what section that's in?
and what section that's in. Currently, with the way that the proposed language is written, it is a little spread out, but I'm happy to work on rephrasing and recategorizing the sections of the proposal to provide a little more clarification on what kind of processes and inspection would happen in an official establishment versus what kind of processes and inspection would be needed for those operating under custom or for those that operate a mobile unit. But as of right now, it is a little spread through the department, but if it's anything that pertains to an official establishment, the language will say in an official establishment. If it's something that relates to a custom processor, the language states custom processor.
Would it also be possible to include in the consideration of those language, the clarification that the inspection services provided by the Department of Ag for official establishments don't involve any charges beyond the licensing and other requirements that are spelled out in there's nothing set in the language that I've found that there is a cost for the state inspection. And if there's not going to be any cost in a question form, wouldn't it be good to have it covered somewhere in black and white?
Yes, and that's something that I'm happy to work on adding into the language for sure. Stacy?
Yeah, Stacy M., University of Nevada, Reno Extension. I think one of the points that you just clarified in Doug's previous question is it's very hard to determine in these regs what is state inspection versus custom inspection, and then the whole mobile custom inspection. So my questions in my notes, I want to delete sections of this due to the fact that you cannot it is my understanding under Nevada revised statutes that you cannot state inspect a mobile unit. So that means all of your mobile units under this regulation will be custom only.
That is correct, yes. So your question is?
My question is, can we use the FSIS directive for custom because the regulations, section 16, bring that mobile custom up to a USDA level? And I don't think, so there's sections of that where, in fact, I have marked out whole section 16 just to take it out.
Here, let me pull up section 16. We can take a closer look at it so that I can fully understand your question. And
because you're asking section 16.1 is a mobile processing unit must be constructed. Well, those mobile custom processors that are out on the ranch that are killing for that rancher aren't going to have a mobile processing unit constructed. So I just think this language, my question is, this language either needs to be deleted or heavily modified to address those custom processors that are killing on our rural ranches for the producers.
Got it. So your question is on section 16 and how it provides requirements for mobile processing units. I'll go ahead and I'll notate that, and I will explore the language in this section to see what I can remove and how I can rephrase it to make it a little more user-friendly.
Okay, thank you. And I'll submit my comments, like I said, by Friday. My next question is, in the regulations, you give, there's windows of, I don't want to call it opportunities, but there's windows where you require county and city regulatory compliance, and that adds to the fees. So my question is, if you're paying these fees to NDA and you go back to custom, okay, that little guy that's maybe killing, on the ranch or whatever, he's got to have his county permit, he's got to have all of your fees, you've got to review his plan and his unit. So your fees for custom processing for that small guy are going to be $1,250 right off the bat. And then he's got any county or city compliance on top of that for wastewater. The potable water is a big issue that I would like to put into the record in that, asking that if a custom processor is killing that livestock on the ranch, if that rancher can certify the potability of water. or verify that potability, because it doesn't make sense to have to test every place you go, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, that does make sense, and I'll go ahead and I will notate that and explore it in the language to revise. I will also take a look at the fees for custom, and I will explore reducing the current fees for custom, just so that they're a little friendlier for the custom processor. Now, the Nevada Department of Agriculture still has to require fees for certain processes because we need to be able to perform the work that we need to do for these custom processors, to review their site plan. Say they're submitting a site plan, it's their first time, we have to have the manpower and ability to review this to ultimately ensure that these custom processors are developing a safe product for consumers in Nevada.
Okay, and just one more thing, while you're looking at 16, can you also look at 17? Because 17 has the 180 degrees, all of the 60 PSI. I think those are things that you can review in a plan. I don't think they need to be required in the regs, but I would just encourage you to look at those and find something that will realistically fit your requirements.
So your question is on the requirements within section 17 and how they can be revised. I will go ahead and definitely take a look into that and do some rephrasing in that section for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Doug?
Doug Busselman, Nevada Farm Bureau. This morning, or part of my research, I found out that under the current program that NDA carries out for custom meat and poultry, that since there are no specific regulations which authorize the department to do the things that they're already doing, that you're using section 446 of the Nevada Administrative Code. My question is there language in the proposed regulation draft which would wipe that particular provision out, since it's being, because you're proposing to do regulations within 538. Yet this regulation that you're using now to justify your authority is in section 446. Is there some type of provision somewhere in your proposed regulation that takes that concept out of the mix?
Got it. So your question is regarding how 446 has been the regulatory authority for custom processors, and if the changes in 583 remove that authority from 446 and just fully include it in 583.
And is there somewhere in the language of the proposed language that deletes that use that you're currently using?
So in the current 583 language in the Nevada Administrative Code, there's references that go back to the health department and the Board of Health. Those references have been removed from the language to only include the Department of Agriculture and the state quarantine officer, meaning the director of the Department of Agriculture. Now, in NRS 583, section 454, that is where it establishes the authority for licensing of a custom processing establishment or mobile processing unit. And within that section, it also provides what regulations then the department can include for licensing, and that it includes the sanitary, it includes record keeping. So that's there in the NRS. References to Board of Health have been removed. I will explore to see if there's a better way that I can provide clarification on how custom has fully transitioned over to the Nevada Department of Agriculture, and see if there's any way that I can work that language in to the proposed regulation, just because I would like to keep it clear who the authoritative body is.
Well, and I understand that under the current 583, for the most part, the Department of Health has control. I get that. in that the desire is to have the Department of Agriculture in charge rather than the Department of Health. But having said that, you guys are already enforcing whatever authority you think you have using a section 446 that isn't part of that mix. It's a different section.
Mhm.
And so I want to make sure that in the mix or in the process of going forward, that you deal with the authority you're already using to delete that so that you don't charge them for that plus the other fees.
Absolutely. And I will definitely explore that to provide that clarification and division as requested.
No.
Stacy?
Yeah, Stacy, UNR Extension. Section 1911 is a good example of where that county, city versus NDA line is, and it deals with operational site of mobile processing. If you are requiring that any custom operator or state inspection operator have that county or city permit, then I don't know why it's in the regs, or it should just say, have a permit from your county or city, because they're gonna check, your wastewater, your contamination. They're gonna, notice all the neighbors, that type of stuff. So it's like it's dual. And I think one of the things is to keep in mind is we have individuals that are doing USDA processing right now that are doing box beef programs. And in order to ship that frozen meat in a box beef program across state lines, the counties are requiring them to have a commercial kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's way overboard. So if we can look at a way through this process to also, give NDA that authority, but I don't know how you mix and match all this. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the fine line.
So could you provide me with that section once more, please? You
It
said,
was 1911. The area immediately surrounding the operational site of a mobile processing unit must be maintained to prevent insanitary conditions and contain blood or any other waste products. So that is right in, it's in my county permit that I know that we run with our mobile unit. I don't know if Churchill County does the same, but we're based out of Lyon.
Mhm.
That's actually section 20.
Section 20, yeah.
Is it 2011?
Section
2011.
Okay. I missed a number there.
2011.
Could you restate your question once more so that I can appropriately notate it for
Yes, I
further
think we need
exploration?
to- I think there needs to be consideration between county and state jurisdictions, specifically with NDA's authority versus our county health departments, and what is or where is that line? Right now, there's being Nevada revised statutes used to, I think, make things a little bit more difficult, like the box beef example that I told you about.
Mhm.
And I think if there's ways to incorporate in the NAC, that would be helpful. It needs to be done now.
So ultimately, your question is regarding just clarification.
Clarification of who has what authority, and because when it's stated in these regs, and then the county's gonna have it in their regs, I mean, do you require that county permit or do you not?
Mhm.
And if you do, then I don't think it should be here, because it's already in the county regs, but that's my opinion.
I'll go ahead and we'll explore the relation between counties and all associated departments. Do you have any questions online?
We do not.
Got one more for you.
Sure.
Regarding mobile, are you saying that you guys will have state inspection for mobile processors? or
No, not
harvesters?
at the moment. So
Okay.
your question
So
is
then-
regarding if there will be state inspection for mobile units. At the given moment, the NRS does not allow state inspection for mobile units.
Okay,
The way that the Nevada revised statute is currently written, mobile is a custom operation. So
okay.
until the NRS can be adjusted, it will be a custom operation.
Custom exempt, but that's when you're implementing the 880 degree sterilizers and the 60 PSI for your water pressure and so this kind of goes back to what you're talking
I
about
wanted
here.
to,
So
yeah.
they're supposed to be able to implement those kind of things on mobile service.
For proper sanitation, 180 has been the general water temperature, but if 180-degree water is not available for a processor, they can use an approved chemical.
Of course. Okay. And then I'm guessing you're going to be checking people's rigs on how they're harvesting these animals, depending on which county they're in?
So your question is regarding the inspection of said mobile unit, correct?
Yeah, and how to operate that per your guys' regulations.
Well, if you are starting a mobile unit and you're doing it for custom processing, you would submit a plan for your mobile unit detailing the construction of your mobile unit and how it would operate. Employee from the Nevada Department of Agriculture would then receive this plan, they would review it, and they would come review in person your mobile unit and run through it with you to tell you, yes, this will be a sanitary operation, or no, this step within it would render a carcass insanitary. Here's how to fix it. Here's how to mend it. So the NDA wants to provide technical services. They want to be able to help the small producer, small processor be able to comply with the regulations. Now, I understand it's incredibly unfair to provide regulations and say, do it.
No,
I want to be there. I want to be able to work through it with a producer, and I want to help them every step of the way as they need it to be compliant.
Right. I'm just trying to imagine what this vehicle is going to look like. Is it going to have a meat locker with the water tank and sterilizers and sanitation and a crane to be able to do it? Or can a guy go out and pick up, knock one down and take him somewhere and go clean them up? So that's my question is, how intricate are we going to go on these regulations? If somebody's going to provide a mobile service, but it's still going to be under custom, then why those parameters is my question. Does the guy's got to go out and spend $100,000 on a trailer setup that he can be able to do this? Because that's not feasible for most people.
Absolutely not.
But if somebody knows how to do this kind of skill and technique and wants to be able to provide a service outside under custom exempt, where I know with USDA, there are some regulations that are separate because we're a very small plant compared to some of the obviously very large facilities across the nation. And so there's different regulations regarding what heights we have to live up to and how often we have to test certain things. So to me, to what level of grant of inspection are you going to offer for somebody that buys the $100,000 setup or somebody that's just providing another service? You're going to have two different variations there. And if your requirements are based off of somebody that needs to have an immaculate setup, then it's going to short circuit everybody else out there. Now, I don't really have an issue with that because I don't think everybody and their mother needs to be able to go out and do this. But to what extent can you make it a little bit more fair for somebody that's, just getting started, trying to walk down that line?
So basically how to make it more fair for someone who wants to start, because not everyone can afford one of those mobile units, as you stated. That's something that I'm happy to review and explore further within my regs, but ultimately, if they're operating in a sanitary manner, they're treating the animal humanely, they are, they're keeping their utensils in ways that they should, they're transporting the carcass appropriately.
Right.
Those are the things that matter.
Those are the things that matter.
construction of the
your
unit
regulations
isn't
show that when it comes time.
Mhm.
Because the way you perceive this to be said is the same page as me, but the next person 10 years from now may look at it in another way and being like, oh, you can't do this. Yet everybody out here in this industry, the way I see it is we're providing a service to the community, trying to put food in families' homes, right? So we want to make sure that we do quality work, but we also understand that not every family is able to purchase $20 a pound ribeyes.
Mhm.
So that's where we come in. We provide a service that allows people to feed their family at a lesser amount of money. And so I want to make sure that when this goes into regulations, that's still feasible for people that may be less fortunate.
Absolutely. So I will go ahead and I will continue to review these regulations. This is not the final language. The point of these workshops is so that I can gain feedback to shape the final language.
Absolutely.
So I completely agree with the points that you're making. It is important to get food on people's table. That is one of my main priorities. And at the same time, I want to make sure that the food that is getting to people's tables is safe for consumption.
Yeah, sanitary, of course.
So I have to find the
Yep.
perfect balance between the
Right,
two.
and I think this is a good place to be doing it. I mean, you've got a couple different avenues here that are all associated in the same realm, but we're all doing it a little bit differently. No two shops are the same. And so to be able to implement some of the things that are said here today, I think are going to be huge benefit for Nevada down the road.
Thank you. Yeah, I will go ahead and I will keep exploring the language to make it great for everyone.
Cool.
Any questions online? Does anyone else here have any more questions before we move into the final period for public comment? And if you driving home and you think of a comment, please feel free to email me.
Okay. Where is this going to be posted so we can have a copy of today's session?
Of today's session, I will work on getting it posted online.
Okay.
If you want, once it is posted, I'm happy to send you an email to let you know it's been posted, where it's been posted.
Awesome.
Did you do public comment already? I know.
About to move into the last session. All right, so thank you everyone for the questions and discussions. We will now move into the second period for public comment. Anyone wishing to make a statement for the record and consideration may do so now. Again, if you're joining us online, please use the raised hand function. And if you're joining via phone, press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself when called upon. Stacy.
Stacy M. with University of Nevada, Reno Extension. I think one of my biggest issues with this program is I go back and forth because I did not expect the heavy regulation against custom exempt. Now that I've done some research, it's my understanding that USDA will provide back the department 50% of the cost of regulating custom exempt, which they do not regulate now, if that makes sense. So I think it puts NDA in a really tough position. They're making you be the bad guys to come in and regulate. Now, with that said, if there needs to be some type of regulation of custom exempt, again, I urge that it's done in a way that doesn't impact the good that people are doing right now, those services that they're providing producers. And if you intend to regulate it up to a USDA level, that will basically put them out of business. So if we can be respectful, all of us through this process and find a way to actually use this type of program to build the industry in Nevada would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you for your comment, Stacy. Does anyone else have public comment? Doug?
Doug Wasselman, Nevada Farm Bureau. We will be providing a complete set of comments on specifics by the December 15th deadline for submitting those in writing. But for today, I would like to go on the record to say that we do support the establishment of an in-state inspection program. We've been very strong supporters of creating that type of an opportunity, and we're very much in support of doing that, and doing so with the equivalency requirement that USDA requires. We understand that. Our concern continues to be, as Stacy made mention of, the proposals that you put in here to deal with custom processing in mobile units. We believe that these folks here are basically going to be held to the same levels and standards that you're enforcing on official establishments. And now what we found out today is it's even bigger of a difference, because a custom processor will have to pay under the current language all the same fees that a custom or that an official establishment will pay. They get to mark theirs not for sale. And those who are doing it as under the state inspection program, they get the bonus of being able to sell that product commercially. And they're all paying the same amount of inspection fees and requirements for licensing and everything else. Now, on top of that, we've also learned that those who are getting the official establishment services, they don't even have to pay for the inspections. So I think there's a very big difference of the burden on the custom processors, and they don't get any of the benefits. And I think that has to be figured out in some way in order to make it justifiable, because otherwise there's no reason to legally do custom processing, because you get all the weight and none of the benefits. I think we support a legitimate proposal that would go forward. We just don't think that what's being proposed is legitimate.
All right, thank you for your comment, Doug. Do we have anyone else that wants to provide public comment? Do we have anyone online?
I don't know if it's public comment, a question, because you lost me, and I'm not familiar with all this stuff, but you lost me on this, because it sounds to me like, from listening to the conversation, the custom guy can basically take his pickup out, go harvest this animal and everything. Where would be the fees from NDA on that? Where does he have to pay for that? I missed that, I'm sorry. He's got fees he has to pay to do that?
Yeah, so is this more of a question or a
Yeah, I guess, because I'm lost. I'm trying with Doug saying that they're bearing all the cost, and I know from a facility standpoint, we bear a lot of cost. So I'm trying to figure out where is it that they're bearing these costs that we're not, I guess.
Mhm.
Because my question was that the custom guy, what are the fees that he has to pay then?
Section 13.
The $1,200 that you guys talked about earlier?
There would be a permit fee and then
Okay.
there would be
And
a
what do
plan
we
review
have to
fee.
pay though?
Same.
Well, or more, depending on the volume is what you were saying. The more on the volume of how much we used, our fees are gonna be more.
That's not
Yeah, well, that was what was mentioned when we first started, was it was based on how much we used.
That's right.
So it was a sliding scale.
Well, no, that was your question about how much it costs to administer such program, not cost to the producer.
Actually, the cost was what we are gonna have to pay,
Yeah,
What you guys are gonna have to pay, okay,
other than the licensing.
other than just the licensing and plan review.
So if we need somebody out there 5 days a week, 8 hours a
Licensing and
day,
plan review
And that's annually.
annually, yes.
Okay.
So,
So, but even if you do it for, I mean, so you're just as smart to be able to do it for custom exempt. I mean, is there an option, or when you pay for it, you get your state inspection and custom exempt?
you would have to notate what operation you're running. So
Okay,
there would be a permitting and then there would be a licensing. So is there any more public comment at the moment? So if we have no more public comment, Thank you all for your participation. The NDA will take the comments from today into consideration along with any written comments received during the rulemaking process. And following the workshop process, there will be a hearing for adoption of regulations scheduled and communicated. The notice for the hearing will be posted not less than 30 days prior to the hearing date and will provide instruction as to how to provide written comment and a deadline for submission of comment for purpose of being included in the official record of the hearing for adoption. Thank you everyone for attending, and this workshop is adjourning as of 4:11 p.m.
Wait a minute, it's too late.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got more questions than I got answers. Because it still doesn't, because my initial question was, what is it gonna cost us as a plant? And that was, slide